Hi, I'm Lavana. I used to think being the dependable daughter meant they'd protect what I built. But one morning, I came home and found out my parents sold my $8,000 work car without telling me, just so my sister could take a vacation. That betrayal? It wasn't the first, and it definitely wasn't the worst. They made decisions behind closed doors, drained my finances, and still called it family. So I moved out. But what I did next? The sun had already started dipping behind the Sacramento skyline when I pulled off the freeway. The traffic had been a mess, nothing new, but for once I didn't mind the slow crawl. It gave me time to breathe, to appreciate the quiet hum of the engine beneath me. My car wasn't just a machine, it was the first thing I'd ever bought completely on my own. No cosigner, no handout. Every monthly payment chipped away with freelance income and side hustles, marketing gigs, design projects, even a few grueling months doing rideshare just to scrape together enough for the down payment. That night, I was coming back from a client meeting in Midtown. It had gone well. We'd finalized a retainer deal, something stable for the next 3 months. That was huge for someone like me who worked without a net. I remember tapping the steering wheel lightly, feeling proud. That car had taken me everywhere. Conferences, client pitches, late-night drives to clear my head when everything else felt like too much. But the moment I turned onto our street, a prickle of something odd crawled down my spine. The driveway was empty. I blinked, pulled forward slowly, stopped right where I always did. Maybe someone had moved it? Maybe Dad needed to shift things around in the garage? But when I walked up the steps and opened the front door, the smell of chamomile tea drifted toward me, familiar, almost comforting, until I turned the corner into the kitchen. There they were, Mom and Dad, sitting at the table like it was any other evening. Mom was flipping through some magazine, sipping tea like she was in a spa commercial. Dad had the TV on low volume, eyes barely registering me. "Where's my car?" I asked, not even bothering to say hello. Mom didn't even look up. "We sold it." It took me a full second to register the words. "You what?" She finally met my eyes, as calm as ever. "Your sister's been stressed, honey. She needed a break. That retreat in Arizona is supposed to help with her anxiety." I could feel my stomach bottom out. "That car was mine, paid off, in my name. I need it for work. You knew that." "You work from home most days," she said, waving her hand. "Besides, Aylin needed it more. You're strong. You'll manage." I stood there frozen. It wasn't the first time they'd dismissed what I needed, but this wasn't just a dismissal. This was theft, and they were sipping tea over it. "Did she ask for this?" My voice cracked. "She's been overwhelmed," Mom said, like that explained everything. "She's your sister. Family means helping each other." "Helping?" I whispered. "You think helping means robbing me blind?" Dad hadn't said a word. He shifted slightly, pretending to focus on the muted news broadcast, his body language screaming, "I don't want to deal with this." "You didn't even tell me," I said. "Not even a call. You just took it." Mom raised an eyebrow, like I was the irrational one. "We didn't think you'd understand." "No," I said, swallowing the lump forming in my throat. "You knew I'd be furious. That's why you didn't say anything." She placed her mug down, sighing like I'd ruined her evening. "You're being dramatic again." I turned to Dad. "You have nothing to say?" He didn't look at me, just shrugged. "It was your mom's decision." That was a lie, and we all knew it. Decisions like this, they always made them together, always behind closed doors, always framed as what's best for the family. I went to my room in silence, no door slamming, no yelling, just cold. Standing at the window, I stared out at the empty driveway. My fingers curled into fists. That car represented everything I'd built. All the nights I skipped dinner to hit a deadline. All the clients I drove out to meet because I didn't have the luxury of letting them come to me. It was more than metal and wheels. It was proof that I could do something for myself. That I wasn't just the afterthought youngest daughter in a house that never saw me as more than the helper. They didn't just sell my car. They sold every mile I drove to get away from this house. They sold every hour I worked to be something outside of the other daughter. And they didn't even flinch. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just stood there, breathing through my nose, remembering every little sacrifice I'd made to pay that car off early, the side gigs, the canceled dates, the sleepless nights. But most of all, I remembered how I'd smiled the day I got the pink slip in the mail. Finally mine. No strings attached. Now it was gone. And with it, the last bit of trust I had in them. The house had gone quiet hours ago, but I was still awake, lying in bed, fully clothed, unable to turn off the racing in my chest. I hadn't spoken a word to them since dinner. Not that they noticed. They'd gone about their evening like nothing had happened. The TV had buzzed low in the living room, some generic crime show humming, while Mom loaded the dishwasher like she hadn't just sold my independence for someone else's vacation. Around midnight, I got up. I wasn't sleepy, just restless. I padded down the hall barefoot, thinking I might grab a glass of water and head back to bed. But as I passed the kitchen, I heard it. Their voices. She'll understand. She always does. It was Mom. Calm, collected, just like earlier. There was a pause, and then Dad's voice, low but clear. She always gets over it. Lavana's used to adjusting. I froze behind the hallway wall, the hardwood cold beneath my feet. They were still talking about me. Not with me. Not to me. Just around me. Like I was some abstract inconvenience they'd solved by rearranging furniture. I mean, come on, Mom added. We've all made sacrifices. The words didn't sting the way I expected. They sank in slowly, like cold water soaking into the fabric of something you can't quite wring dry. This wasn't about a car anymore. This was about being erased from my own family's narrative, rewritten into the role of the reliable one, the manageable daughter. I didn't go in. I just turned around, walked back to my room, and shut the door without a sound. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. Aylin. They meant well. You always take things too personally. No greeting, no apology. Just that. I stared at the screen like it had slapped me. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, ready to respond with all the things I wanted to say. About how they'd stripped me of dignity, of control, of voice. About how meant well didn't patch holes torn open by betrayal. Instead, I typed one word. Noted. And then I turned off the phone. There was no point explaining myself to someone who had never once tried to understand. The room was dim, lit only by the streetlight outside, leaking through the blinds. My nightstand felt too empty without my car keys on it. That tiny clink I used to hear every night when I tossed them there was gone. It was stupid how loud their absence felt. I sat back down on the bed and leaned against the wall. My eyes wandered toward the ceiling, but what I really saw were moments. Not big ones. Just quiet memories. The time we took a family photo, and I was the only one not told about it. I saw it later on Aylin's feed. Her in a dress, Mom and Dad on either side, all smiling. No caption, just likes and hearts. The summer I stayed home to clean the house, while Aylin recharged after college finals. They said it was only fair. She had more on her plate. I was just freelancing. The Thanksgiving, I tried to bring up a work win at the table, and Mom cut in with, "Let's not make this all about career stuff, honey." It wasn't the big things. It was the pattern. Always being the one expected to bend, to carry the silence, to understand. A notification buzzed again. This time it was Calder. "You want to talk?" I started to type something. "It's fine." Backspace. "Not now." Send. I couldn't explain this kind of hollow to someone who'd never been quietly chipped away by people who swore they loved you. I curled onto my side, pulling the blanket up but leaving my feet bare. That was the part of me that still needed to feel the ground, needed to remember this was real. Out there, in the same house, they were probably sleeping soundly, believing they'd made the right choice, telling themselves they'd handled it as a family. No raised voices, no open fights, just quiet decisions made in closed rooms I was never invited into. And that was what hurt the most. Not what they said, but what they didn't. By the time the sun started bleeding through the blinds, I still hadn't slept. My body was exhausted, But my mind wouldn't shut up. Every time I closed my eyes, I could still hear my mother's voice saying I'd get over it. I didn't want to get over it. I had a virtual pitch scheduled at 10. It wasn't just another client, it was the one. A corporate wellness firm that had reached out after seeing my analytics breakdowns on LinkedIn. I'd been hustling for weeks, tailoring the proposal, building sample dashboards, and today was the meeting. Except this client wasn't like most. The CEO insisted on signing all NDAs in person. Security protocol, he said. It's how we work. He suggested we meet at a co-working space downtown, a place I used often, until my car was sold out from under me. Still, I got dressed. Slacks, navy blouse, pulled back hair. I wanted to feel like myself, even if I had no way to get there. I opened my rideshare app. Surge pricing, no cars nearby. Tried another, nothing. Called Calder. No answer. I tried 2 other friends. Voicemail. I texted one neighbor, but they were at work, and it felt humiliating explaining why I suddenly had no vehicle. My laptop screen glowed with the time. 9:38. I was supposed to be there at 10. I checked the bus schedule. Nothing that would get me there in time. By 9:52, I was sitting at the kitchen table in full work attire, staring at my phone like it might teleport me downtown. The digital clock flipped to 10:01. I closed the laptop and just sat there. That wasn't just a gig lost. It was stability, validation, something I'd fought to earn outside this house. And it was gone because someone else needed a vacation. Later that evening, I sat across from them at dinner. Aylin was scrolling through her phone between bites of roasted chicken. Dad buttered a roll without looking at anyone. Mom passed the green beans like this was any other Tuesday. I waited for a moment of silence, then said, I lost the contract today. No one paused. I added, because I didn't have a car. You know, the one you sold? Mom didn't even blink. Lavana, don't start. I'm not starting anything, You think we had it easy? She snapped, setting her fork down with a clink. Your father and I gave up everything for you girls. We didn't get to chase clients around or play entrepreneur. We worked real jobs. Dad muttered, Your mom's right. I opened my mouth, but Mom continued, So one meeting didn't work out. You're still breathing, aren't you? It's not the end of the world. Aylin giggled at something on her screen and mumbled, Drama queen. I stared at the tablecloth, fingers curled around my fork so tightly I thought it might snap. I wanted to yell. I wanted to shake the truth into them, that my work was real, that every gig paid for a bill they didn't even know existed. But I didn't. I pushed my plate back, stood up, and walked to my room without a word. Hours passed. The house dimmed again. I pulled out my laptop, rereading the email. Unfortunately, we've decided to move forward with another candidate. The words blurred. In the corner, my office still sat. A folding table near the fridge, a chair I bought from a garage sale. I used to feel proud of that space, scrappy, built from nothing. But now, it felt like a mockery. I used to tell myself setbacks were just detours, but maybe this wasn't a detour. Maybe I was just easy to ignore, easy to replace, even by my own family. My phone buzzed. Calder. Still thinking about what you told me. Want help with a plan? I stared at the message for a long time, then looked out the window. The street lamp flickered against the garage where my car used to be. I whispered to the dark, maybe I do need a plan. I opened the Notes app on my phone and typed out a title. What I pay for that no one notices. Wi-Fi cleaning supplies, shared Netflix Prime account. Aylin uses gas bill. When I had a car. Groceries, 90% of them. Then I opened a drawer, pulled out an old envelope full of receipts, and started sorting. I wasn't going to shout or plead. I was done being the understanding one. They thought I'd just take it like I always had. They were about to meet a version of me they didn't create. Once I had everything spread out across my bed. Receipts, statements, lists. I realized I wasn't even sure what I was looking for anymore. Maybe I just needed proof that I wasn't crazy, that what I felt was real. Aylin had been posting pictures all week, lounging on some cabana in Palm Springs, holding a margarita with a paper umbrella. Her captions were typical: self-care, deserved this, blessed. But the timing didn't sit right. I reached for my laptop, logged into my bank. I hadn't checked my statements in detail for months. I usually scanned for irregular charges and paid the bill. But now I was combing line by line. And there it was. Hotel Palm Oasis. $612.89, JetBlue Airlines. $378.55 Uber. $74.90, room service. $103.10. All within the past 10 days. All lining up with Aylin's trip. My hands stiffened on the trackpad. I scrolled faster. A charge from Sephora. Aylin had posted a haul video the day before she left. Another from a boutique spa that tagged her in an Instagram story. I knew I hadn't used the card. I'd been too busy trying to keep my freelance business alive. The final straw came when I checked the cardholder name. LaVonna Monroe. My name. But I hadn't made those purchases. I sat still for a moment, breathing through clenched teeth. Then I printed the statement, folded it in half, and slid it into an envelope. Downstairs, Larissa was at the dining table, clipping the dead leaves from a houseplant. Aylin was in the corner chair, one foot propped up, lazily painting her toenails. I stepped in. Neither looked up. I placed the envelope on the table and opened it wide. "Can one of you explain these charges?" Larissa looked at the papers. "What's this about? Palm Springs, JetBlue, Sephora, all on my card." Aylin rolled her eyes. "Seriously? You're making a scene about that?" "Did either of you ask me?" I asked, voice steady but low. "Did anyone think maybe I needed that money for, I don't know, my actual life?" Larissa stood up, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "You weren't using the card. It's been sitting idle for months. So you figured what? That meant it was fair game?" "We're a family," she said flatly. "Sometimes things are shared. You wouldn't even have that credit line if it weren't for us helping you build it." Aylin huffed. "It's not like it's a crime, LaVonna. Chill. We're not stealing from strangers." I looked at both of them. "You stole from me." Larissa's eyes narrowed. "You live under this roof. We keep the lights on, don't we? We've sacrificed for you." "No," I said, quieter now. "You sacrificed me." They stood there, almost bored, like I was the unreasonable one, the drama queen again. I took a breath. "I want the card removed from all your devices, and I want reimbursement." Aylin laughed. "Get over yourself." "I'm not asking," I said, turning on my heel before my voice could betray the heat crawling up my neck. I climbed the stairs 2 at a time, slammed my bedroom door shut, and dropped the envelope on my desk. I felt like something had cracked open inside me, not shattered, but split, the way old wood does before it finally gives. The worst part wasn't the theft. It was that they didn't see it as theft. To them, my boundaries were optional, my consent, a formality. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I emptied my drawers, pulled out every important document I had, contracts, invoices, passwords. I took my backup drive from under the bed and locked everything in a small fireproof box. Then I logged into my bank account, removed every auto payment linked to this address, switched passwords, signed up for identity theft protection. As I worked, I made a list, not of what I'd lost, but of what I was reclaiming. They thought they knew me, that I was just the helper, the stable one, the daughter who never fought back. But they didn't know this version of me, not the one who was done apologizing for taking up space, not the one who would draw a line in permanent ink and dare them to cross it. By the end of the week, my room looked like the front end of a clearance sale. Stacks of folded clothes, zippered bags, a box labeled tools, holding nothing more than my battered laptop and a few backup drives. The essentials. The things I didn't trust in anyone else's hands anymore. I had just zipped up the last suitcase when my phone lit up with a voicemail notification. I didn't answer when it rang. I had stopped answering Larissa's calls days ago. But something made me listen this time. Her voice came through the speaker like it was standing in the middle of my chest. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she said. "Let's not drag this out, sweetie. You always take things too seriously. Come home. Let's be reasonable." Not sorry, not even close. Then, just minutes after the voicemail, a text pinged from my cousin Jenna. "Hey, just checking in. Your mom said you've been acting off lately. Is everything okay?" So that was it. Larissa was covering her tracks. If I snapped, she could point to her concerned texts, her careful image, her pitying tone. That's not guilt. That's damage control. I didn't respond to either of them. Instead, I walked into the closet, pulled out an old duffel bag from college, and started rolling clothes into tight cylinders. Not because I needed more space, because I needed focus. I needed motion. At midnight, the house had gone still. Virgil had turned off the living room lights. Aylin's door was shut, and from under it, I saw the pulsing light of her TV. I moved in silence, as I had always done, like a guest in a home I helped pay for. Only now, every step was deliberate. I wrapped cords, bagged toiletries, packed chargers, and stacked folders inside my backpack. Then I took one last look around. The walls were still covered in faded wallpaper from the late 90s. The same patch where I once taped up a college acceptance letter that nobody came to read. The same dresser drawer where I kept birthday cards from years when no one remembered. I texted Calder. "Dropping stuff off early. We'll explain soon." He replied instantly. "Keys under the blue planter." I slept for 2 hours, maybe less. By 5 a.m., I was loading everything into the back seat of my Corolla, well, the car I used to own. Now I was borrowing Calder's hatchback. He'd left it in the driveway, filled with gas. I walked back into the kitchen. My sneakers didn't even make a sound on the tile. I laid the keys on the counter, took out a small notepad, tore a single sheet. "You've made your choices. Now I'm making mine. I'm leaving so I don't lose myself." I didn't leave a signature, just folded the note once, placed it by the fruit bowl, and walked out without a backward glance. I didn't cry. Not when I pulled out of the driveway. Not when I passed the rusted neighborhood stop sign. Not even when the street where I grew up faded in the rearview mirror. It wasn't sorrow anymore. It was clarity. By 7, I was at Calder's. I let myself in, dropped my bags by the door, and collapsed onto the couch. I stayed there for a while, staring at nothing, letting the absence of noise settle around me like a blanket. I only unpacked the bare minimum, one set of sheets, my laptop, and a few toiletries. The rest stayed in boxes against the wall, stacked like sandbags around the part of myself still trying to catch up. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept straight through. No tossing, no turning, just breath. Heavy, undisturbed. The next morning, Calder made coffee and didn't ask questions. I didn't offer details. We sat on his small balcony, facing the rising sun over Sacramento's skyline. I wrapped my hands around the mug, steam curling against my face. "I don't know where I'm going yet," I said softly, eyes scanning rooftops, "but I know it's not back there." He nodded like he already understood. The funny thing was, there was no big blowout, no screaming match, no slamming of doors. I didn't burn the bridge. I just stopped pretending it led anywhere. The morning after I moved in with Calder, I found myself at his kitchen table, half dressed in a borrowed hoodie, staring at my laptop with more focus than I'd had in weeks. The coffee he made was lukewarm, untouched. I wasn't hungry. I wasn't tired. I was calculated. I opened my Dropbox, searching through folders I hadn't looked at since I first bought the car. Receipts, title, insurance scans. Then, buried inside a folder labeled Adulting Stuff, there it was, vehicle registration. I clicked it open, and there it sat. My full legal name in all caps. No cosigner, no secondary owner, just me. My heart didn't race. My breath didn't catch. What I felt wasn't surprise. It was confirmation. They'd sold something they had no right to touch. Just to be sure, I called the DMV. After 20 minutes on hold, a tired-sounding woman picked up. "Yes, ma'am. The car was registered to you solely. Looks like it was transferred through a private bill of sale 3 weeks ago." I closed my eyes. "Was that legal?" "Not without your signature. You didn't sign off on that. No, I didn't. She paused. Then technically, yes, it's a fraudulent transfer. That's all I needed to hear. I hung up, leaned back in the chair, and let the ceiling blur. There were no screaming voices, no angry rebuttals, just a bitter taste in my mouth that wouldn't go away. I opened a second tab, Instagram. Aylin's page was public, of course. She never really grasped the concept of privacy. It didn't take long to line up the puzzle. Bikini selfie with cocktail? Timestamped 2 days before they claimed they were helping her escape stress. Boomerang at the airport with her boyfriend? A week before the car sale. Hotel tagged in Palm Springs. Same day my credit card was hit with a family emergency expense. They didn't just lie. They planned it, scripted it, executed it while I was working late, while I was picking up groceries, while I was letting them borrow my Prime account to save money on shipping. I clicked back to my own bank records. I matched dates, charges, merchant codes. It lined up like a confession on paper. By noon, I had a folder titled Car Theft Evidence. Inside it, I dropped in PDF copies of every document I could find, emails with the dealership, scans of the DMV record, tax receipts, credit card charges, messages from Larissa asking for help with utilities. Then, in the notes section of the folder, I typed, "If anything happens to me, this folder goes public." I stared at those words for a long time before hitting save. Around 3 p.m., Calder came back from work early and leaned against the kitchen counter. "You building a case?" "Not officially," I said, closing the lid on my laptop. "Not yet. But you're ready." I nodded. "They need to know I'm not bluffing anymore." That night, I opened a blank Word doc. At the top I typed, "To Larissa and Virgil." Underneath it, I wrote plainly, directly, no emotion, no pleading, just facts. The vehicle you sold was legally under my name. I've attached the registration copy, along with relevant bank statements. I know what you did. Next time you want to steal from me, read the fine print. No signature, no warmth, just data. I printed it out, folded it once, and tucked it into an envelope. I wasn't going to mail it. Not yet. But I wanted it ready. I placed it on top of the fireproof box under my bed, beside the locked folder and a printed list of passwords I'd changed. For the first time, I felt taller in my own skin, not because I was yelling, not because I was trying to convince them I mattered, but because I didn't need their recognition anymore. I had proof. The envelope stayed on my nightstand for 3 days. I didn't touch it, didn't reread it. Just the sight of it was enough. I'd made my statement. Whether they ever opened it didn't matter. It existed, and it was real. Unlike most of the words that came out of their mouths. By Thursday, I was back at work, sitting through a morning briefing in a windowless conference room that smelled like burnt coffee and old carpet glue. The usual agenda, marketing projections, next quarter's KPIs, buzzed in the background. I tried to focus, tapping my pen absently on the edge of my notepad. Then Mike, the guy who always thought he was the funniest person in the room, raised his voice just enough to be heard over a colleague's presentation. "Hey, just don't cross Lavana," he said with a smirk. "She might lawyer up, like she did with her parents." There was a beat of silence, not shock, amusement, then a few chuckles. I didn't move, didn't blink, just stared down at the pie chart on the screen like it mattered. Inside, though? I could feel the blood rise to my face, heat crawling up my neck like someone had pulled off a mask I didn't know I was wearing. So it was out, somewhere between my mother's calls, my sister's barbed texts, and our shared circles, the drama had bled into my professional life. On lunch break, I didn't eat. I sat on a bench near the parking lot, phone in hand, heart pounding. I wasn't embarrassed. I was exposed. Calder texted me just before 3 p.m. "You need to hear this." I didn't mean to record it, but I couldn't ignore it either. There was an audio file attached. I plugged in my earbuds, pressed play. Aylin's voice filtered through, sharp and lazy at once, like someone who'd never had to try hard to be heard. I didn't make them sell her car. I just reminded them how dramatic she gets. They jumped on it. Lavana's not the confrontational type anyway. A few people laughed in the background. Someone said, "Well, she didn't fight you, did she?" Aylin replied, chuckling, "She never does. That's what makes it easy." I replayed the file. Once, twice, the third time I listened in complete stillness. That wasn't hurt in my chest anymore. It was clarity hardening into resolve. I opened my evidence folder and dropped the file in. Renamed it Aylin_confession_dinner.m4a. But I didn't stop there. I logged into my old Instagram. Posted a plain black image. No caption. Just the words in white font. You can paint someone as weak. Just be sure they don't learn how to frame the picture. I logged out. That was enough. The right people would see it, the ones who mattered, and the ones who'd feel it sting. Less than an hour later, Larissa's name lit up my phone. I watched it ring. Decline. Then came a text from Aylin. What the hell are you trying to do? Delete. I didn't answer either. I just opened a new folder on my hard drive. Named it Public-Facing File If They Push. I uploaded the audio, the letter, the registration document, screenshots of the text messages, photos of the receipts. That night, I sat on Calder's balcony again, watching the wind mess with the trees. He brought me tea but didn't ask what I was doing. He didn't need to. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt ready. They wanted silence, wanted me to be the accommodating one, the one who let things go because family means forgiveness. But what they never considered was that maybe silence can be louder than a scream, and I was finally using mine. The next morning, a package showed up on Calder's doorstep. No return label, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Aylin's. It was the kind of neat, almost theatrical script that screamed, "Look how harmless I am." Inside was the birthday scarf I'd mailed her just 2 weeks ago, wrapped neatly in the original tissue paper. Still folded, still untouched. On top sat a card. Not the kind you buy from the store, but a ripped piece of notebook paper, torn crooked, like it had been done in a hurry, but still meant to sting. Didn't want it. You should have spent the money on therapy. I didn't blink, didn't let Calder see it. I walked into the kitchen, slid the note into the shredder, and listened as the blades turned her smugness into strips. Then I opened my laptop. I already had the document saved. Everything was drafted, organized, and labeled. It was just time to print. Demand for compensation. Unauthorized sale of registered vehicle, illicit use of personal financial accounts. Emotional distress directly resulting from familial negligence and manipulation. I signed my name at the bottom, sharp, clean, and folded the letter into thirds. I placed it inside a manila envelope and drove it to the post office myself. Certified mail, return receipt requested. I didn't flinch when I handed it over. Just looked the clerk in the eye and said, "It's time they took me seriously." By evening, the ripple started. First was a voicemail from Larissa. Her voice cracked a little at the edges, but it wasn't remorse. It was performance. "You're tearing this family apart, Lavana, after everything we've done for you. Is this really necessary?" I didn't bother listening to the whole thing. I deleted it before she reached the fake tears. Then came the social media fallout. Aylin posted a black and white photo of her at some cafe with a quote underneath. "The ones who scream the loudest are often the guiltiest." Right, because returning a gift with a personal attack wasn't screaming, because taking someone's property and justifying it with, "You're too sensitive," was love. My cousin Kayla messaged me on Facebook. "Your mom's really upset. Maybe you should just let things cool off." Cool off. That was always the way they wrapped abuse in gift paper. Don't escalate. Don't talk back. Just let the fire die down while your house burns. I didn't respond to Kayla, or Aylin, or Larissa. I didn't explain myself anymore. Calder watched me close my laptop after archiving the latest batch of messages. "You okay?" he asked. "I will be," I replied. "It's strange. You grow up thinking the worst thing you can do is disappoint your family, but sometimes the worst thing is giving them the power to keep disappointing you." He didn't say anything, just sat beside me, steady as always. That Sunday, I went for a walk alone along the boardwalk by the river. The air was cool, the water quiet except for the occasional ripple from a boat passing in the distance. I paused by the railing, staring out across the current. This was the first time in years I didn't feel like I owed anyone an apology for existing. I opened my phone. There were 3 voicemails waiting, 1 from Larissa, 2 from my aunt. I deleted them without listening. Then I opened my gallery and scrolled through an old photo, Me at age 16, holding the keys to my first used car, smiling like the whole world was just beginning. I whispered, "You didn't deserve what came after, but you made it anyway." Back at Calder's, I put on some music, poured a glass of water, and cleaned out my inbox. No fanfare, no press release, just quiet, deliberate closure. No more trying to patch holes in something that was never whole. No more carrying guilt that wasn't mine to begin with. And definitely no more pretending. They'd made their choices. Now I'd made mine. The first time I went out in public without that invisible weight pressing down on my spine, it was to the cafe 2 blocks from Calder's place. I wasn't expecting anything. Just coffee. A quiet hour with my notebook and the low hum of strangers' conversations. But before I could pull my pen from my bag, a woman I barely knew from my old neighborhood, Mrs. Merton, always in a visor and white sneakers, stopped at my table. "I heard," she said gently, "about your folks, what they did. You're brave, honey. Most people just stay and suffer." I nodded, unsure what to say. "Thank you," was all I managed. She smiled, then walked away like she hadn't dropped a boulder in my lap. It wasn't judgment, it wasn't gossip, it was recognition. And it echoed louder than anything Larissa or Virgil had ever offered me. Later that week, someone else stopped me near the mailbox outside Calder's apartment. "You're Lavana, right?" the young woman asked. "Did you really sue your parents?" I took a slow breath and answered calmly, "I'm just protecting what's mine, that's all." I didn't explain the car, or the card fraud, or the note Aylin sent with my birthday gift, folded in bitterness. People didn't need all that. They just needed the truth in its simplest form. I stopped letting them take from me. By the following weekend, the fallout had spread, not like wildfire, more like slow fog. I wasn't checking in, but word got back to me anyway. A cousin messaged me. "They're not doing well, but maybe they need to sit with that." Virgil, I heard, had stopped showing up at his Saturday morning golf games. Larissa was defensive at church, according to Kayla's mom. And Aylin? She posted another quote on Instagram over a picture of her fake laughing with a glass of wine. "When the weakest leave, the strong suffer the burden." Cute. I scrolled past it, felt the flicker of annoyance, and then nothing. Not rage, not hurt, just absence. Like watching a rerun of a show that used to matter to you, until you realized you'd outgrown it. Back at the apartment, Calder was fiddling with audio levels on his computer. I leaned against the doorway. "I think I want to record something," I said. He turned. "Your story?" "Parts of it, not everything, but enough." And so I started. Not a memoir, not a takedown. Just 10-minute voice logs I uploaded under a pseudonym to a simple site Calder helped me build. We named it The Unseen Daughter. It felt right, like telling the story from the corner of a room no one ever noticed. The feedback came slowly, a few comments, then a few more. One woman wrote, "Thank you, I thought it was just me." Another said, "You gave words to something I never knew how to name." I didn't post every week. Some days I just opened my recorder and sat with silence, and sometimes that was enough. One afternoon I walked by the old house. Not intentionally, I'd taken a different route back from a bookstore, and there it was. Same shutters, same chipped paint near the garage. The yard was overgrown. I paused across the street. Not to stare, just to acknowledge. I didn't feel the tug to go up to the door. Didn't fantasize about yelling, or forgiving, or even closure. I just stood there, hands in my jacket pockets, and thought, "You are not my home. You never were." And then I walked on. Back at my new place, I brewed tea, sat by the window while the rain started. Gentle, not dramatic, just the kind of drizzle that makes the street shimmer. I cupped my hands around the mug, took a slow sip, and breathed. Not the tight, desperate inhale of someone trying to keep it together, but the kind that comes after. After the storm, after the fight, after the need to prove anything. Just breath, just me. Looking back, I didn't just walk away from a toxic home. I walked into a life I chose on my own terms. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Sometimes, love isn't enough to make things right. You can forgive someone quietly, but still protect yourself loudly. To anyone watching who's ever been made to feel small, unheard, or like their boundaries were too much, you are not too much. You were just in a room that couldn't hold your strength. Don't wait for permission to live freely. Don't wait for someone to validate your pain before you start healing. You deserve peace now, not after they change, not after they apologize. And maybe you've been there. Maybe you're still there. But if my story resonates with you, I hope it reminds you that you are allowed to reclaim what was always yours: your voice, your dignity, your future. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who refused to see your worth? What did that moment feel like for you? Drop a comment below. If this story touched your heart, comment 1, or let me know where in the world you're watching from. And if it didn't sit right with you, tell me why. I want to hear your truth too. And hey, if you found value in this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. Because I promise you, there are more voices waiting to be heard, and yours might be one of them. Thanks for spending your time here with me today. I'll see you in the next chapter.